Now, here we have a lesson about the discriminant. We're going to see how can we use the discriminant to determine how many solutions we have. But the main idea here is we use the discriminant to find how many solutions we have. So we use the discriminant to figure out how many solutions we have. Now, the discriminant is the inner part of the quadratic formula. So the discriminant itself is just b squared minus 4ac. So the discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. We're going to find the discriminant, and that's going to tell you how many solutions we have. There's always going to be three scenarios. The discriminant can be positive, and when the discriminant is positive, we can have two real solutions. And we can have two scenarios. If the discriminant is positive and it's a perfect square, then we're going to have rational solutions. If the discriminant is positive and it's not a perfect square, then we're going to have irrational solutions. The second scenario is that the discriminant can also be 0. And in that case, we're only going to have one real solution. And we can also see that the discriminant can also be negative. And when the discriminant is negative, then we're going to have two imaginary solutions. Okay. So the process is we take the discriminant. We see if we have positive, 0, negative. If it's positive, then we need to see if it's a perfect square or not. If it's a perfect square, then we'll have two real rational solutions. If it's not a perfect square, it's two real irrational solutions. If it's 0, we just have one real solution. And if it's negative, we got imaginary solutions. Okay, so let's just do some examples here. Again, let's find the discriminant. And let's see if we have rational, irrational, or imaginary solutions. Okay, so again, the discriminant that is equal to just b squared minus 4ac. That is the discriminant. That's just the discriminant. Now, we have here, we need to find a, b, and c. So we need to make sure that our equation is equal to 0, which it is already. Now that our equation is equal to 0, then we can figure out what a is, what b is, and what c is. A is 6, b is negative 2, and c is negative 3. Now that we know a, b, and c, we can plug it in. So now we're going to have b squared. So now let's find the discriminant. Okay, so now we're going to have negative 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 6, times c, which is negative 3. Okay, so for this, we could just use our calculator if it's necessary. So let's see. Negative 2 to the second, that is equal to just 4. So now let's figure out what that is. Negative 4 times 6 times negative 3. So that is equal to positive 74. So that means that our discriminant is just going to be 70, 74, 75, 76. So it's just 76. Now, here we have a positive discriminant. And because it's a positive discriminant, then we have two real solutions. Now, let's see, are our solutions rational or irrational? Well, let's see if 76 is a perfect square. So, we're just not, but how do we know? Just take the square root of it. Square root of 76. We get a decimal as a representation. It's not a perfect square. Or it's not a perfect number, square number. So that means that we're going to have irrational solutions. Okay, how? It was positive, so we got two real solutions. And because we didn't have a perfect square, then it's an irrational. So we got two irrational real solutions here. Okay, let's do another example here. Now again, we want to find the discriminant to see how many solutions we have. First, our equation has to be equal to 0. It's already equal to 0. So we can find what A, what B, and what C is. So A is 2, B is 5, and C is -4. Okay, so now let's use our discriminant, which again, our discriminant is B squared minus 4AC. This is the discriminant. Our discriminant is right here. So let's plug it in. So we're going to have 5 to the second minus 4 times A times C. This is what we have. Let's just see what we have here. 5 to the second, that is equal to 25. -4 times 2, that's -8. -8 times 4, let's figure that out. -8 times 4, so that is equal to 32. So we got positive 32. So let's just double check that. -4 times 2 times -4. So yes, positive 32. Now let's see, 32 plus 25, so that's 30, that's 50, that's 55, that's 57. Okay. So we got positive 57 now. Now again, because your discriminant is positive, then we're going to have two real solutions. Well, let's take it one step at a time. Okay, so we have a positive. We have a positive discriminant. Now, because we have a positive discriminant, then we have two real solutions. Now, let's see. Is 57, can we take the square root of 57? Oh, well, let's see. The square root of 57, we get a decimal. So this is not a perfect square. 57 is not a perfect square. So that means that we have two real solutions and they are irrational. This is our conclusion. We take the discriminant, we saw that it was positive, so we have two real solutions, and because a positive number is not a perfect square, then we got irrational solutions. Now let's see here now. In example C, one thing that I'm going to say is that you cannot start thinking about A, B, and C, the values for A, B, and C, until your equation is equal to 0. So we first need to make our equation equal to 0. So let's make our equation equal to 0 here. So we're going to have 4k squared plus 8k plus 4 equal to 0. Now that our equation is equal to 0, then we can start finding the discriminant. So now, let's find out what A is, what B is, and what C is. A is the number in front of the second exponent, the variable with the second exponent, so that's 4. B is a number in front of the variable with the first exponent. And C is the number that's alone, so that's a 4. We know A, we know B, we know C. Again, our discriminant is B squared minus 4AC. So let's just plug it in now. So we're going to have 8 squared minus 4 times 4 times C, which is 4. Let's figure out what that is. 8 to the second minus 4 times 4 times 4. So we get that our discriminant is 0. Okay, so now our discriminant is 0. So now what kind of conclusion can we have? Well, if we look back, if we have a discriminant that is 0, we're just going to have one real solution. Discriminant is equal to 0, then we have one real solution. The discriminant is 0. So what is our conclusion? So we're just going to have one real solution. Now here, you don't have to tell if it's rational or irrational because the discriminant is 0. So when the discriminant is 0, we just tell if it's, we're just going to say if it's a real solution. Again, to recap, you take the discriminant and the result, it's what's going to give you our what we're looking for. If your discriminant is positive, then we got two real solutions, and you got to check if it's a perfect square or not. If it's a perfect square, it's rational, not a perfect square irrational. If your discriminant is 0, then you get one real solution, and if your discriminant is negative, then we're gonna call that two imaginary solutions. So now here's your entrance ticket. Find the discriminant and state the number of rational, irrational, and imaginary solutions.